Oi, I'm Susanna Zaraysky, the author of the book Language is Music.
Oi, I'm Luciana from Street Smart Brazil, co-author of the book 51 Portuguese Idioms, Speak Like a Brazilian. And this is part 2 of our video series using songs to teach Brazilian Portuguese. Today we're going to use a Brazilian song called Você Não Me Ensinou a Te Esquecer, or in English, You Didn't Teach Me to Forget You. This song was made popular by Fernando Mendes and Caetano Veloso.
And we also have the Spanish version of the song by Marcus Maestro. It's in the blog post, and his version is called Tu No Me Enseñaste, Olvidar. It's not a direct translation from the Portuguese to the Spanish, but it's very close, and it gives you an idea about what the song is about.
Wonderful, so let's see. The first 2 lines of the song will give us a lot of good things to talk about. So here's how it goes.
Não vejo mais você faz tanto tempo, que vontade que eu sinto.
That's great. So we start with não vejo. 2 great things for students to think about. One is the nasal sound in não. Não.
So for people who are not used to speaking with these nasal vowels, there's a reason it's called a nasal vowel. Your nose literally vibrates to the sound. So, no. So, if you put your fingers to your nose, if you say it correctly, no, you're going to feel a vibration. If you say it like in English, no. If you're going to say it like in English, now, there's no vibration. So, it's all about your nose. No.
No.
Now, if you need help with it, I suggest you use a mirror so you see how your mouth is moving when you say the English now or the Portuguese
no.
So if you see Luciana's mouth is much more it's wide open when she's saying no.
No. Also, this is a big difference from how Spanish speakers tend to pronounce no as they start Portuguese, because you need to open your mouth, otherwise it's going to be more like no.
Correct.
But it's no.
Now. So use a mirror when you're practicing your nasal vowels in Portuguese.
Wonderful. Then he's saying não vejo. Vejo is a great word for us to talk about. It's the present tense from the verb ver, to see. So eu vejo, I see. And in Spanish?
Yo veo.
Very good. It's similar. Spanish speakers can probably understand me when I speak, but you need to observe that you can understand it, but it's different when you have to pronounce it. The other interesting thing about this word is the letter J, because the sound of the J in Portuguese is different from the sound of the J in English and in Spanish.
That's correct. So if you're not used to that sound, think of the actress Zsa Zsa Gabor. It's the J sound that's in her name that you need to pronounce with the J in Portuguese.
And the J is like that in every word. In this one, vejo. And I always like to tell my students, to show my students a common name in Spanish name, which is how I pronounce it, José.
José.
So if you think about José, and it might sound funny, and it sounds different, but that's a good way to memorize the sound of the J.
That's right. All right, and then the second line is que vontade que eu sinto. What are the problems there for Spanish speakers?
First one, actually for English speakers too, it's the G in vontade. When the DE is the last syllable of the word, you will hear different pronunciations of that in different parts of Brazil because we have different accents. I say vontade, not every Brazilian will say the same way. You may hear vontade, vontade, and I actually have a blog post about that. It's called The Pronunciation of the Letter D, so you learn a lot more about that letter on that blog post.
Okay, so that's with que vontade. Well, what about the word sinto, que eu sinto? What's the problem there? Because Spanish speakers would say que eu siento.
Yeah, and that's very close to, in Portuguese, when I say to sit down, eu sento, I sit. So, eu sinto comes from the verb sentir. It's S-E-N, sentir, but when you pronounce it in the present tense, it's eu sinto. It's important to notice that difference. And it means to feel. Eu sinto, I feel.
So the difference between to feel and to sit is major, so make sure you don't make that mistake.
I feel, eu sinto. I sit, eu sento. Also notice how I pronounce the O at the end of the word. I say, eu sinto. So it's very common to hear the O sounding U. And it happens when the O is the last letter of the word and when it's not the stressed syllable of the word. That is, when it doesn't have a graphic accent on it. So you can say sinto. And you will hear different pronunciations of that in Brazil, but I find it easier for students to say the word right with the correct emphasis on the second to last syllable when they say U, eu sinto.
Well, what if you want to say, I'm really sorry about something?
That's a
How
great...
would you say it?
Yeah, sinto muito.
Ah, so Spanish speakers say, eu siento mucho.
Yes, exactly, but it's not, in Portuguese it's not muito. Muito. So again, you have that same O sounding like U. It makes it easier when you pronounce it like that. Sinto muito.
That's a good thing to remember. What about the third line, de olhar em seus olhos?
That's very good. One thing my students always say, my Spanish-speaking students, sus olhos. But the word is seus.
Seus.
Yeah, seus olhos. Very good, your eyes. I also love teaching the sound of the LH. Olhar. Seus olhos. It's different. If I have LO, I say lo. So the tip of my tongue is touching the roof, lo. But when I say lho, the middle of my tongue is touching the roof. Olhar nos seus olhos. This LHO, it's, and the LHA too, but it's challenging, I know, but with practice you can do it. And singing a song, you get a lot of practice. For the English speakers, the LHO, lho, it's almost like you're saying yo, yo, but you're saying lho.
So just add the L right before it.
Yeah.
And what about the next line? É verdade, eu não minto.
See how songs are great to help you learn the language? We talked about vontade, and there's the G sound, and you may be thinking, am I going to remember that when I'm talking to my Brazilian friends? Here it is again, é verdade, it is true. So you have the same G sound again. Eu não minto. This is from the verb mentir, to lie, and eu minto, or he's saying eu não minto, I don't lie. It's the present tense. So you can see that the song can even teach you grammar. It's showing you there's a certain pattern with certain verbs. Sentir, eu sinto. Mentir, eu minto.
So Spanish speakers, it's not eu miento, it's eu minto. Again, nasal vowel. So you really have to think about if you're making that sound from your nose, minto. If you're not making it, put your finger to your nose and see if your nose is vibrating at the into.
Yeah. I also want to mention one interesting thing. Spanish speakers, like when I'm teaching, they can understand me from day one in class. I speak Portuguese and they can understand most of what I say. But one thing is to understand what you hear. The other thing is to be able to say it. It's very different. So when I say minto or sinto, the student understands, but 1 minute later he or she may say the word and say it with the Spanish pronunciation. So this is another way to learn with songs. Pay a lot of attention to the differences between the songs. It's not enough to understand Portuguese. Just when you understand, go one step further and think, oh, okay, I understand, but she says it in this other funny way. She says sinto or minto.
And that's why it's very important to actually have the lyrics of the songs when you're listening to the song. So that way you're making a visual connection to what you're hearing, because we learn in all different sorts of ways. But if you're used to seeing things written in a certain way in Spanish or English, you may not recognize when you read them in Portuguese that you pronounce it differently. So that's why you have to listen to the songs and read the lyrics at the same time. Fantastic. To make that connection.
That's correct.
Okay, well, how about the next part? Você bem que podia perdoar, eu sou mais uma vez me aceitar. What could we learn from that verse?
Okay, a few good things here. We have the word bem, which could deserve a video on its own, but here we go. When you have the M as the last letter of the word, notice that I don't close my lips to say bem, right? So it doesn't sound like bem. I don't close my lips, bem. So that's one thing. The other thing is the verb perdoar. Because if I talk to you and I say perdoar, you understand. But you might, how would you say it in Spanish?
Perdonar. So when you sing it, it's Você bem que podia perdoar. It's not Você bem que podia perdonar.
Exactly. Also, when I say perdoar, and the song, I think Caetano Veloso has sort of the same perdoar, the sound of the R, it varies in Brazil. This is just how I pronounce, but in other parts of the country it's a harder R, more rolled.
Alright, what about the next line? E só mais uma vez me aceitar.
Good, so we have aceitar. The verb in Spanish is very, very close.
Aceitar.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not the same.
Yeah, so let's practice this paragraph. You can repeat after me. Você bem que podia perdoar. E só mais uma vez me aceitar.
Me aceitar. And it's not me aceitar, it's me aceitar.
That's a very good point. Me aceitar. Alright, muito obrigada. Thank you very much for watching this video. Gracias.
Thank you, and we will see you in our next videos.
Ciao.
Bye!